makes me want to holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I got strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
Oh, you know we need them. We need those strategies, don't we? Those strategies for living. So are you ready? Are you ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
No, I think I'm ready.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting where you uncover history and how you uncover history.
Well, in all of life's lessons, right?
All of life's lessons, and there are many of them. I would say even beyond blue and white. How'd you like how I do that?
That was clever.
Yeah. Actually,
you know that was Delft.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We've got an interesting program today. Genevieve Wheeler Brown is our life strategist, and what a background that she has. She's written a book called Beyond Blue and White: The Hidden History of Delftware and the Women Behind the Iconic Ceramic. And you know, she Genevieve is a decorative art advisor. I'll tell you more about her when we bring her on next segment. But she's also been on the Antiques Roadshow. One of my I'm addicted. I'm addicted to the Antiques Roadshow. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm relying on Genevieve to tell us a lot about Beyond Blue and White. Although, you know, I'm familiar with what it is. I'm sure you are too.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it might be interesting to explore how these objects can become more than objects, right? How they carry, you know, memory, identity, and all sorts of things that we don't often think about, including value. Like, what does it mean for us to value these things?
Okay,
right?
so I can see I'm already going to get ganged up on you today. I mean, I can already tell what's going to happen.
Well, we'll see.
You know, you're going to get into all of this stuff, and I'm going to be over here talking about the Antique Roadshow.
Well, you can do that too. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I hope so. Genevieve Wheeler Brown, our life strategist today, Beyond Blue and White. Folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate our sponsors who make it all possible. The Robinson Film Center, and Azalea Cleaners, and Pintail Roofing, and Learning RX, we train your brain. The Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of those Muffies. SRT Sales Training, Uprising Addiction Center, and Mira Direct Primary Care. Back in a moment, we're going to meet Genevieve Wheeler Brown, Beyond Blue and White today, here on Strategies for Living. Stay with us.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul align. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem trapped. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
And welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian. I'm Dr. David McMillian, and let's welcome into the program now Genevieve Wheeler Brown. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a decorative art advisor and writer, with over 30 years in the art world, including a decade with Christie's in New York and London. She's been actively involved in the community of Delftware. She's also participated, as I mentioned, on the Antiques Roadshow as an appraiser with an eye out for overlooked treasure. In her role, she's held innumerable objects from fake Stradivari violins to gold-mounted Fabergé eggs, considering their value, but also the stories they can tell. Genevieve Wheeler Brown, welcome to Strategies.
David, Lauren, thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure.
Well, I got to be honest with you. Your publicist, Leslie, called and started telling me about the book. And I said, Leslie, I can't do an hour program that's called Strategies for Living on these blue and white dishes. And she said, you don't understand. And then I got the book. She sent me the book, and she was right. I hate to admit, don't tell Leslie I said this, but but after I got the book, I do understand.
Right. Well, the title, it's Beyond Blue and White for a good reason.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Tell us about that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, the title, it's really, the title is really as layered as the ceramics itself, because on the surface, it refers, of course, to that familiar blue and white palette of the Delftware.
Right.
Something, I think that you mentioned it, Lauren, that something that people, easily recognized, instantly, and they often think they already completely understand it. But the book invites you to look past that surface, to go beyond what seems purely decorative. And what emerges is really a much larger story that's not just about ceramics, but it's about global trade. It's about cultural exchange.
Right.
It's also about lives, and most importantly, the women who shaped it and collected and preserved it over centuries. So that title is really a promise that behind often something that's beautiful and very familiar can lie a deeper and surprising story.
Yeah.
Ones that usually things that are hidden in plain sight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good life lesson. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So you discover there was 75 pieces of very rare, we're talking 17th and 18th century Delftware, and they get rediscovered in a Manhattan townhouse, right?
Yeah, correct. So it was the summer of 2019, and completely out of the blue, I got a phone call from a women's organization that was founded in New York during its Gilded Age. So, more than 125 years ago. And they wanted me to take a look at a very small part of really their expansive collection of art, of fine and decorative arts that were located in a townhouse in New York, in Manhattan's Upper East Side. So when I went over, I really thought I'd be seeing just a handful of objects, maybe a couple of vases, maybe a couple of those, beautiful plates. But when I walked in, what greeted me was astonishing. As you said, it was this rare cache of more than 75 pieces of 17th and 18th century Dutch Delftware. These icons of Dutch culture, of the Dutch Golden Age.
And again, with your work, the work that you do as an appraiser, the work that you've done on the Antiques Roadshow, you're accustomed to holding treasure in your hand. But it sounds like it sounds like we're blown away from
I think
what you found.
It's about curiosity, and, we have expectations, but I think when we least expect it, I don't know if it's happened to you, when you least expect it, you'll be completely surprised. So I think it's really looking at it from a wider lens. It's about stepping into new experieners and then often being surprised by what you find.
Yeah.
So it was first an introduction to the collection, and then out of it sort of unfolded so many stories of women's lives. So it once I had an opportunity to get to know the collection, it just started opening door after door after door.
And one of those women was Barbara Rotteveel, who, I hope I said that name correctly.
Dutch is really, truly, I thought I was a great language person, but Dutch, is, puts me in my place.
Yeah.
So, your accent is good as mine, David. So
I love it.
But yeah,
So
you're right. Yeah. Barbara Rodeville.
Barbara was the founder of the Three Bells Delftware factory back in 1671. And
it's truly
so that's one of the stories in here. And
she's an incredible story because there are three things that, Delft, the town of Delft, are really known for. One is, Johann Vermeer. I mean, he's an icon of the history of painting.
Sure.
Where he worked. The second is, of course, Delftware, the beautiful blue and white ceramics. And the third thing, though, was a famous explosion that happened in the 1650s that flattened about a third of the town of Delft. It was an explosion of more than 100,000 pounds of gunpowder that was being secretly stored under the city, for the protection of the Dutch Republic. And a lot of people, many people left Delft, but one of them who didn't was Barbara Rodeville. And so she was really a girl of the Dutch Golden Age. She was later widowed, but even with three children surviving the thunderclap, she went on to found one of the longest running potteries of Delft. And she was, 5 years older than her neighbor, Johannes Vermeer. And Vermeer even admitted her to the Guild of St. Luke in 1671. So they would have known each other. So her story, puts a greater context, I think, on, when we enjoy looking at, Delftware or, the paintings of Vermeer, you can get a sense then of also the other lives that were so inspiring from the same period.
You've even got Queen Mary II, who was a Delftware patron, right?
Well, she was, Then she opens the door to, the second area, because what we find out is that, 1 in 5 women were owners of these potteries in the 17th and 18th century, which is actually like a fascinating and virtually sort of undiscussed sort of subject. But it wasn't just women weren't just pottery owners, they were also the patrons. And Mary is probably the greatest patron. And it's her patronage that leads us to those, those incredible, they look almost like pyramidal towers, and often you see them with tulips coming out of them.
Yeah.
And they're often called, tulipiers or tulip vases. And that was really under her patronage, these iconic forms. But she was a consummate collector, and it's thanks to Mary that we really had that explosion, through the rest of Europe, this love of blue and white, and then eventually, to the Americas.
Yeah. How rare? Kind of give us an idea about. I have a brother who loves antiques, and he's an antique guy, and his name's Bubba.
Yeah.
But go figure.
He sounds great.
Yeah. Oh, he's you should see some of what he's got and the collections he's got.
What does he collect?
Oh my goodness. Everything from little.
He likes the old cookbooks.
The old
old children's books.
Oh yeah.
And he's got
lots of old A&P stuff.
Yeah, our father, we grew up in an A&P grocery store, so he's got a lot of.
Yes, I remember the stamps. Right, there were those stamps.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, plaid stamps, of course. And anyway, he's the little dolls that go one inside another. He's got quite a collection of those.
The Russian.
Yeah,
yep,
and I could go on, but we're not talking about. He'd like us to, but we're not talking about Bubba today. We should have him here.
I'll have to meet him.
Yeah, definitely. We should have him here co-hosting as. But anyway, I've got some appreciation for the rarity of things because of my relationship with him. But help us to understand how rare this is. I mean.
Sure.
Bubba's not going to go in. No. Bubba's not going to go to an antique sale and probably find any of this, is he?
it's a great question, because it kind of explains that. Well, all right, so Delftware, and this is also the genius of the production of Delftware, but in the 17th and 18th century, was that it was really accessible to everyone. So they were making pieces that were less expensive, that you could use for every day. Those great, plates that people would mount on their walls, or they would have them, arranged like through their, really through their house, everything from over the mantles to along the cornices.
Yeah.
So everyone could buy them, from the plates, but then all the way up to the most expensive, opulent, really, pieces that were so, difficult to construct. And were expensive. So you had this, you had a great deal of Delft that was being made at a variety of price points. So, to this day, so you may, you and I can go out and maybe buy a beautiful, 18th century plate for maybe a few $100s, or, but then there are museums now that are purchasing some of those beautiful tulip, the tulip vases for several million. So you have this incredible range. Wow. So I think then that's what appeals and makes it a global phenomenon, in those periods, is that it was, everyone could be a part of that story. And they were.
We're learning a lot about it today from Genevieve Wheeler Brown. The book is Beyond Blue and White. We've got more to learn. In fact, lots to learn here on Strategies today. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Facing the same old problems day to day makes you wanna holler, get away. Looking for the road that'll get me there. Looking for hope and peace to spare. Looking for strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
And welcome back into Strategies for a Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. We're with Genevieve Wheeler Brown today. She is the author of Beyond Blue and White. It's the hidden history of Delftware and the women behind the iconic ceramic. And I got to ask you, when you walked into, did you realize right away when you walked into that townhouse in Manhattan and saw what you saw, did you realize, could you have realized there's eventually going to be a book about this and stories, and I'm going to research? Did you have any idea, Genevieve?
It was no, because this was, I really believe in serendipity, and what was stepping into that room, and you're surrounded by, it's just blues and whites, but then also the many other colors that you learn that the Delft, potters used. But it wasn't until I turned over one of the pieces, and sort of on the base of this one object were the initials GVS, which were for Gertrude Verstella, of this female pottery owner that opened the door to the identities, which it's interesting that it hadn't occurred to me that women would be involved in this world. And it was just turning over an object, seeing those initials that led to my just more research. But then it was during COVID. So the organization that owns the collection asked me to do a lecture for them.
Right.
And I said happily. And I said, look, it would be fantastic to do, these are beautiful objects, but let's dig into the lives of the women as well. Yeah. And that lecture was heard by a literary agent. And so she called me up and she said, you don't know me, but I've heard your lecture, and I think you should really think about, that this should be a book. And that's how, how can you say no? It's an incredible opportunity. So So I took a dive, took the deep dive, and
Is this your
and then
first?
the
Is
book
this
was.
your very first book?
It is my first book. I had been writing for magazines, in the decorative arts, and, exhibition reviews, and, just general editorial on the decorative arts. But creating a book then is, the way I looked at it, the way I approached it was, this would be, a series of articles that could then be, that are all sort of one work. So, but then, each one, grew and grew. So it was, but it came out of the way I see it, it just organically and, out of serendipity, as life sometimes is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the psychological lesson.
Yeah. To follow where life unfolds before you. Yeah. And in all of your in all of your research, Genevieve, was there something that surprised you or stayed with you? What was something that surprised you the most?
I think it was looking at, if you're reviewing all the names. So I spent a lot of time reading in archives, but the names of these women, and then doing the numbers and realizing that 1 in 5 of these potteries were owned by women.
Yeah.
That fact sort of shifted my view of who is producing these works, and just in the art that's around us. We're looking at things that we don't really realize, everything behind the museum label, behind the there's more. And I think it just it opened a door to uncovering the hidden histories that were there all along.
Yeah, and they still emotionally resonate with people centuries later. There's still an emotional resonance with these pieces, aren't there?
And it is remarkable, because I think we're really in a golden age of information, right? I mean, we have these incredible now archives and the ability to share information. And I think what's going to be really happening, I think this book is just one of what'll be many examples of people uncovering more about the things around us. We're our ability to connect all this amazing information is really that's incredible. Our ability to access information and then to make those connections. To learn more about the people before us and what we can learn from it, for our own lives.
Absolutely.
I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm drawn to watch the Antique Roadshow. Yeah. I mean, you guys make it look. You appraisers make it look so. And I'm aware it's television, so there's probably some editing that goes on. Pretty sure there is, but you guys make it look so easy. It's like you pick it up and you start spurting all kinds of stories.
And it is really funny, because it's like if you look at the show, it's so succinct, and it's so in a short amount of time. But the reality is it's you go to the destinations and you start so early in the morning. I mean, I remember arriving probably by 7 or 8 in the morning, and you're reviewing object. It's almost like a hose that's turned on, and you are talking and reviewing objects for almost 12 hours straight.
Yeah. And everybody wants theirs to be worth $1 million, right?
No. Well, it is this incredible volume that's coming at you, and you're talking, after, by the evening, your voice is gone, but you're still at the same time, every piece is an opportunity, to really to talk, to share, and it's right. The anticipation is there, the stories, and so you're sharing, the person who brings the object and then the specialist come together to bring the piece to life. So it's, there are the breakthroughs, and then there's also the heartbreak, so that's why it's a great program because it really touches on, all of our, hopes and dreams, but then also, the I don't know, the surprises and the that we're that we don't necessarily expect.
Yeah,
But, yeah,
I'm a history guy, so I get hooked on the stories, but I also just, I'm in admiration of you appraisers and what you do. And I didn't know that they were that long a day, so I have even more appreciation for you guys.
Yeah, so it's a marathon when when you head into the Antiques Roadshow, you do the full day, and then you might have, dinner with some of the specialists, and then you wake up and you do it all over again. So it's a joy. It's a joy.
Yeah, I could imagine. And it's usually a weekend that it's taped over?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're working, you're at the office Monday to Friday, and then you'll all fly down, and it's a marathon, but yeah, you leave, with great stories and having met some, wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah, you may even have 2 or 3 more books out of your experiences there. Yeah.
I don't know. It's true. It's like the art business, the art world in itself has, it's never ending. Yeah, it's a never ending source.
That was kind of a question that I have. I get concerned sometimes in our modern world where everything's mass produced. Do we need to be worried about losing the craftsmanship and then the stories that can continue on through the craftsmanship?
I don't think so, because, and I'll tell you why, because there are many things that I didn't expect writing this book. And one of them was the response. And I am contacted by everyone from museum curators, historians, archaeologists, to all the way to interior designers, but then also, Lauren, contemporary artists.
Mm-hmm.
So these are contemporary artists that are reading and want to know more about the artists before them, even in ceramics.
Yeah.
These are American artists, Dutch artists, they're artists from the UK that have reached out to me. They're inspired by the art before us, and they're using a variety of materials to reinterpret, to re-engage. Like, the curiosity is still there. So while we might not have 30 potteries in Delft as there were at its height in 1700, you still have this incredible international interest in. I think it's just much more spread out, but there's community there, and then there's interest. So I don't doubt that there are amazing works of art still being created.
Yeah, and
I think that's important to humanity.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
for our going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the interconnectedness, right, of cultures.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and generations, right?
Generations,
and
cultures.
It's really everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, because it turns out that these ceramics, like the Delftware, they're really everywhere. Like, they're in museums, they're in magazines, but they're in people's homes.
Mm-hmm.
These are plates, they're bowls. There's something that maybe you inherited from your grandmother, and they're vessels that are they're just imbued with family history, with the stories of people who meant so much to us. So,
folks, you may have a treasure within hanging on your walls. You never know. We are talking with Genevieve Wheeler Brown today. Her book is Beyond Blue and White. It's the hidden history of Delftware and the women behind the iconic ceramic. We've got a whole lot more to learn today on strategies for living with Genevieve Wheeler Brown. So don't go away. Stay right where you are.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies, strategies, strategies for living radio.
And welcome back. Welcome back into a unique Strategies for Living today with Genevieve Wheeler Brown, Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Genevieve Wheeler Brown's book is Beyond Blue and White. You can find it at your favorite bookseller. It's the Hidden History of Delftware, and the women behind the iconic ceramic. There's a lot of stories here. It strikes me that some people who are listening to the radio, and you know how we listen to radio, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Some people, like me, I'm going to pass this on to my brother,
Right.
but, I can't call him right now and say, tune in. So, the good news.
We're on podcasts, so
Yeah.
you can tune in anytime, anywhere,
And
wherever you listen to podcasts.
And you can share this story with anybody that you want to share it with.
Please do.
Yeah, just go to wherever you get your podcast from, whether that's Apple or Spotify or wherever you download your iHeart. We're on all the places. Just search Strategies for Living. We should come up, and subscribe to us, and you'll never miss an episode.
Yeah. So Genevieve, we were talking kind of at the end of last segment about how these dishes, but also these objects, whatever they may be of art and use, may be passed from generation to generation, but also culture, but also they're used, right? And so in your research, but also in your work in the Roadshow, I'm wondering, have you noticed, can these objects kind of carry an emotional or a spiritual energy from the people who made them, but also the people who housed them and used them?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Lauren, because I feel like one part of the book itself too is I really wanted to understand, why do people love blue and white, blue and white ceramic, and it's kind of to your point, like what is that connection, like what, and so what I did is I looked at the colors, that blue and white have this almost instinctive pull. Going back to like the Egyptians believe that blue was mystical, it had magical properties. So they would often depict the gods, with blue hair, with using lapis, and then you have Sir Isaac Newton, reflecting on the nature of the color white. White is also equally mesmerizing. It has, these properties. He believed that white was the color of light. So also you have, blue and white ceramics, they reflected, and the reason why people are often drawn to them is the mystique of its origins, the cobalt, the materials that were used to make it, its role in global trade, in the 17th and 18th century. So the blue and white ceramics always carried this aura of distant places, and cultural exchange that drew people to it. But then it became this perennial symbol of refined taste, so that they would carry. So when you owned a piece of it, it signaled that you had discernment, that you were you also had this refined palate, and so this connection to these objects, whether it was appealing to your senses, to your imagination, but also to your intellect, so these objects invite us really, and they hold our attention, but then they continue to be popular, and be magnetic, and leaving room for reinvention. And so that's what I believe, that some art forms, including this blue and white ceramic of Delft, kind of had this lasting kind of magic, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like and you mentioned earlier, there's all price ranges of these pieces, and it so some of them
Exactly
would have been considered, I guess, ordinary objects, and yet it's interesting because these ordinary objects carry extraordinary meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that Beyond Blue and White delves into. Why do we crave that? Why do we crave that sense of connection to both history and craftsmanship, Genevieve?
That's so interesting. I really think that it really is that objects, right, can imbue our dreams, our past, how we want to be. Like any collector, objects really reflect who we are, but then also how we want to be perceived by others. And so when we bring objects into our life, they're loaded, just loaded with meaning, and they've always been loaded with meaning. So if you think about the generations of people who have for these objects like this Delftware, they also evolve in terms of their meaning. From when they were made in the 17th and 18th century, they were maybe more decorative or utilitarian, as you said.
Right.
But then by the 19th century, they were really vehicles for, they were looked at as more of a historic object. And you had women actually as historians writing about them, using them as objects as a way to teach history, right? Yeah. So this collection, as I found out, was really put together by an incredible group of women in the late 19th century in Gilded Age New York, when, of course, women couldn't vote and they weren't invited to participate in museums, on the board, although their husbands all were. So this pretty incredible group of women, including, Mrs. Cornelius Vanderbilt, Mrs. J.P. Morgan, Mrs. Stanford White, they had an audacious idea to start a museum in New York City. And they did it incredibly, in 1895. And this Delftware that inspired the book was a part of their collection. Wow. So so you can see how these objects, are emotional, but then they're also vehicles for women finding agency. I mean, they can really, they have so many facets.
How long did it take you to, once you got that phone call? What an incredible phone call. Hey, I saw your presentation. Yeah. How long did it take you to then do the research and get to the point of the book?
I think the whole process was almost 5 years, because it was, at least, so, a huge part of it was research. So I spent, of course, in the United States, but then also, of course, in the Netherlands. Yeah. So spending a lot of time in the Netherlands, and then also in England, following Queen Mary. Sure. And the spread, right? And then you have this huge amount of information, So basically I created really almost like baskets, and then I started to, organize the information. And then each basket I would sort of cherry pick, looking for fantastic, stories, anecdotes, and then I would shape chapters. Yeah. They sort of naturally would kind of come together.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad you put the baskets in that you put in. Yeah. The book is incredible. It's called Beyond Blue and White.
Thank you.
And Genevieve Wheeler Brown is the author. You can find it at your favorite bookseller. There's a lot of connectedness. There's a lot of historical stories in here, connectedness, connecting cultures, and
giving women voice.
Yeah, all of it and more. Here on Strategies for Living. We'll be right back. And welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, and Genevieve Wheeler Brown. Her book is Beyond Blue and White, The Hidden History of Delftware, and the women behind the iconic ceramic. Genevieve, the time seems like it's flown, but, what do you want people to really keep from our conversation here today? What do you want people to really come away with?
David and Lauren, I think it's really my hope that the next time that when you spot a piece of that blue and white Delftware, whether it's in a museum case or maybe it's something from your own family, that I hope that everyone will see it just a little differently. So not just as beautiful art, but also as a vessel for human stories, for women's stories. This is a tangible link that you can hold in your hands to centuries of hidden ingenuity, ambition, their lives. So I really think that a single, whether if it's a single little shard or a tile or a piece of pottery, it can open a world to you when you choose to look beyond surfaces.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work you do.
Yes,
Keep up the wonderful work. Look forward to the next time we can talk, and hope you'll come back.
Thank you both again. Absolutely. Looking forward.
And folks, you can continue the conversation with Genevieve Wheeler Brown by getting the book Beyond Blue and White at your favorite bookseller. And thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We appreciate you being with us, and we appreciate our sponsors who make it all possible. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX. We train your brain. The Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of the Muffy, SRT Sales Training, Uprising Addiction Center, and Mira Direct Primary Care. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Genevieve Wheeler Brown, for Lauren Leon McMillian, I'm David McMillian. See you next time right here on Strategies for Living.